Welcome back, YouTubers, to another Wednesday video of us, the British Fist.
Ka-ching.
I am Mr. Parkin, and this well-known geezer next to me, it's NJ.
What's up?
Make sure you guys subscribe up above, of course, like this video, and get your comments on what we talk about in this video down in that comment section below.
And make sure you contact us in the link in the description box below.
Indeed. Today we're going to be sort of doing hopefully a two-part Wednesday video series where we talk about some of the Survivor Series that have happened and some of the memories that stick in our mind. Going through the Survivor Series, talking about the main things that stick in our mind. I think we could enjoy this, especially when we get to the more of the era that we know about.
Pretty much, yeah.
Where should we start? We'll start off at the beginning, I guess. 1987, the first ever Survivor Series. Talk about the Survivor Series concept. What you think of the Survivor Series concept to start with?
Well, again, the whole idea was basically to have tag teams going on elimination matches, which came to be on the later years. And I think, to be honest, getting tag teams involved at a certain pay-per-view is definitely a big draw for that pay-per-view.
Yeah, and it did well continuing feuds, isn't it? As we've seen from these first couple, you saw a direction that WWF at the time had within these things. So, you know, you had a lot of feuds intertwined there. It did a good job combining feuds, and there were exciting matches. These kind of matches are always exciting. The 5-on-5, 4-on-4 elimination matches. So, a good concept, and WWE based a pay-per-view on it. So, they obviously had a lot of faith in it.
And I think, to be honest, when the build-up going towards these matches will get you excited for them, and the way they all form together, I think they were just pretty much done. Not all of them, though.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start off with 1987, the first ever Survivor Series. It seemed like to me that this Survivor Series was all about two people, Hogan and Andre. You had the main event, Team Andre versus Team Hogan. We all know what they did at WrestleMania 3. It pretty much changed the landscape of the business. But again, you see here that they have a clear vision as to what they're going to be doing, don't you really?
Yeah, you have your two biggest icons at the time going against each other in a tag match. Again, it was just a big draw because you're either on Hogan's side or Andre's side. So it's nicely done this
I think everyone was on Hogan's side during those days, brother. But let's not forget we also had Team Savage versus Team Honky Tonk Man. I believe that was an IC title feud. But again, what this led to was essentially iconic in WWF because that was the moment when the sort of wrestling boom began. Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant. So we've got to try and kind of take that into account. The first ever Survivor Series was a very important one, not just because it was the first time that this was done and it was a trial, but also for what it meant to what it led to at WrestleMania, essentially.
Yeah.
Moving on now to 1998. There are a lot of these Survivor Series. We'll get through all of them. We're just flicking through them on Wikipedia as we see. 1988 was all about hyping up Randy Savage versus Hulk Hogan. We had the Mega Powers, which were at the time Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage in a match, and I think essentially they ended up turning on each other. Savage went heel, and then you have Savage versus Hogan at WrestleMania. Again, a very clear vision as to what they were going to be doing.
I think Survivor Series is not one of like WWE's biggest pay-per-view. It's one they pay a lot of attention to because it will give you the build to future pay-per-views, especially like we've been saying WrestleMania. And with this particular one, it did do good for Hogan's rivalry with
Macho Man Randy Savage. Yeah. And also, what we're seeing from these cards is you've got all of them are Survivor Series matches, and there's like 4 or 5. They all got a lot of time. So you know, imagine we need to go back and watch some of these really because fucking hell, 4 matches lasting this long, got to be exciting, haven't they?
They sound it because obviously with these matches we keep complaining nowadays how the tag teams are rubbish.
Yeah.
And we go back to these, how these were formed, why they happened, and how good the matches were. We probably have a lot more to say.
Definitely. So moving on to 1989. This was the third one we had. 1989. This was the year I was born. You had the Ultimate Warriors defeating the Heenan family. You know, it amazes me here how much star power we have. You have the Hulkamaniacs versus the $1 Million Team in the mid card. They had a lot of star power back then, didn't they? They
did. With the amount of wrestlers they had, they could do a lot of these matches. That's why you got about 5-6 matches that were so many wrestlers put together.
And this Survivor Series was essentially building up the Ultimate Warrior as this next big babyface. As we know that later that year, he would go on and face Hogan for the WWF Championship, being IC champ, and end up becoming this next big babyface as Hulk Hogan, you know, went to do movies and stuff. So again, another sort of iconic Survivor Series in what it led to at WrestleMania.
That's very true. You can actually see that they're all building off Hulk Hogan because obviously he's the biggest draw. He's the one who's gonna hopefully have the ability of putting other wrestlers over and that. So all this build was pretty good. That's exactly what you need to do. Get a big star like a John Cena now and build stars around these guys. It's something that WWE kind of lack in doing now, but did back then with Hogan a lot. Survivor Series 1990. I don't particularly remember too much from this. The babyface team of Hogan, Warrior,
and Tito Santana defeated the heel team of Ted DiBiase, Rick Martel, the Warlord, Power, and Power and Glory. So I think this was the time when the survivors moved on to the main event. So that was kind of a nice concept in itself, wasn't it?
To have it thrown onto that after the whole other pay-per-views we've had, I think they've done it. You see how it progressed over time and how big Survivor Series was getting now.
Oh God, the Warriors defeated the Perfect Team. That sounds fucking awesome. And the $1 Million Team defeated the Dream Team. Some of those matches sound pretty fucking good. Yeah, and then you have Team Hulkamaniacs defeating the Natural Disasters. Literally reading this off Wikipedia. Going into 1991, this was a big Survivor Series for WWF because this was the first time they had a singles match. You had the Undertaker defeating Hulk Hogan. Now this is when he first. This is like when he first come in. First come into the WWF, and they obviously knew they had something in him, else they wouldn't have let him lose to Hogan. They wouldn't have let him beat Hogan.
No, and with this match, of course, it's going to be a big draw to this pay-per-view because of the way Taker had been built up for this match, and you're going against WWF's biggest star, Hulk Hogan at the time.
It's just a shame that the next pay-per-view occurred. That was the Tuesday in Texas, which kind of ruined this build a little bit. A lot of things were built to that when they really should have been built to Survivor Series. But here, in the main event, you have Legion of Doom, who were a great tag team at the time, versus Natural Disaster. So again, a tag team main event really shows how much they had back then. And you have guys like Ric Flair, Ted DiBiase, Roddy Piper, Bret Hart, and David Boy Smith in the opener. Star power in the opener. That says a lot, doesn't it?
Again, all it is that the Survivor Series are now finding out the best way to draw people in. Yeah. By having these matches, it's working for them, I think.
Definitely. Then we get to 1992. Now, 1992 for me is a big year. Ric Flair won the Royal Rumble. WrestleMania was pretty decent. You had a SummerSlam where David Boy Smith defeated Bret Hart. And then it led to this. And here you have two standout matches, I believe. You have Mr. Perfect and Randy Savage defeating Razor Ramon and Ric Flair. Star power tag. That reminds me of Triple H and Punk versus Awesome Truth, sort of, but more star power in this. Great tag. I watched this on YouTube. It was a great match.
Well, you do expect, again, back in Ric Flair's younger days, you do expect him and Razor to actually put on an entertaining big match. I'm thinking with this blockbuster match for this pay-per-view, again, it was just a good draw. I
don't know whether I'm right in this, but I think this led to Randy Savage versus Flair. No, I'm not. I don't think it did, actually. I don't really know. I can't really remember. I believe it led to Savage versus Flair, or something to do between Mr. Perfect and Ric Flair when he ended his career on Raw. That's all I know about this. But the main event for me is kind of a standout for me. You have a tag team match, Nasty Boys versus Money Inc. Bret Hart defeated Shawn Michaels. Now this was their first sort of sight of main events, wasn't it? You had Bret Hart coming through from both these guys developing from tag teams. This again, 26 minutes, great match. Bret Hart defeating Shawn Michaels. This is their main event start.
Well, with the way they both perform, the fact that these two are going to go up against each other, of course you're going to get people wanting to see it, people interested in it, and it was going to be a blockbuster match for that Survivor Series, so I think that having that as the main event was definitely a good job there.
And then we got to, oh dear, we got some Survivor Series, we got more, they kind of stopped with the singles matches then. This Survivor Series 93, you had the Hart family defeating Shawn Michaels and his Knights, there we go. Then you had the All-Americans, which included Lex Luger. And this was the time when WWE were really trying to hype, because they'd lost Hogan to WCW, and they were trying to hype up Lex Luger as this next big American thing. And we all saw how much that failed. It was essentially a bodybuilder. That was all.
Lex Luger, again, he weren't one of the ones I was fully interested in, and I'm just thinking, having him get involved in Survivor Series, yes, he's still one of your wrestlers, but I just really didn't care that much.
You have Lex Luger versus Yokozuna in a match later on where Lex Luger won by countout, and they acted as if he won the title, but whatever. We just kind of want to forget that one. As far as I know, it wasn't very good, as far as I know from reliable sources. We then have 1994. This was an interesting pay-per-view for two reasons. Number one, fucking Jerry Lawler managed to find himself on a card in the Royal Family against the Doinks about Clowns Are Us. That's not the important thing. Bob Backlund defeated Bret Hart in a WWF Championship match. Now, this was Bob Backlund returning to WWE. He was a great star in the 70s and 80s. And this was when you had the beginning of the Owen Hart heel turn, when he threw in the towel for Bret Hart and cost him the match, saying, so he could be better than his brother. A great feud there between two brothers. We saw a lot of good matches between these two.
And that's what you exactly need. Before you go into pay-per-views, you need a good story and good events that happen that build up to it. And I think this Survivor Series had not a dramatically amount, but it did have stuff that stood out.
Definitely. There's always something that stands out from these Survivor Series. You also had Undertaker defeating Yokozuna in the first ever casket match, I believe it was, with Chuck Norris as the special guest enforcer. What a name to bring into a pay-per-view, Chuck Norris. I don't know. It was a good thing, but Bob Backlund returning, as there's all sorts of good stuff coming from these Survivor Series, all sorts of little memories. Even though we didn't watch these, just from looking at the cards, we can kind of see the memories that this brings upon us. Then we got to 95. You had Goldust defeating Bam Bam Bigelow. Goldust was a character before, he was a very unique character, wasn't he, Goldust?
He was. And again, he weren't the biggest draw, but people found him entertaining.
Yeah.
So I think he did his job in this Survivor Series.
You had a great Survivor Series match here. Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, British Bulldog, and Psycho Sid, with Ted DiBiase and Jim Cornette defeating Yokozuna, Owen Hart, Razor Ramon, and Dean Douglas. The star power in that match alone is what makes this match pretty decent looking to me.
Yeah, it is the star power, the rest of the stuff I should put into this match, the way it was formed. Again, it was a good match up there.
Bret Hart defeated Diesel in that no disqualification match for the WWE Championship. As we know, Diesel was the lowest drawing champion. Thank God they got the title off him at the time in a no DQ match.
But I guess Diesel being involved in a main event, I guess it was something big for him. But again, it was more about Bret Hart.
Definitely, it needed to be at the time because he was developing into a main eventer, especially a big player for that company. Going into Survivor Series 96, we're moving along very fast with these. Couple of things to note here. Bret Hart defeated Steve Austin in a No More Contenders match. This was the start of Steve Austin's big babyface turn, when he would become this big thing in the Attitude Era. And Bret Hart was the perfect guy to put him over. Well, not necessarily, let Austin beat him, but put him over in the fact that they could make him into this big star. Because Bret Hart at the time was turning into a guy that really did need to start putting guys over.
Well, in the past years, we've seen Bret Hart getting built up, get involved in main events, go up against big wrestlers. I think for him to get up to this stage, when he's at the stage when he's done everything to become the World Heavyweight Champion, he's now got to put other wrestlers that want to be just up there with him, like Steve Austin. I'm thinking, what a better guy than these two to go against each other.
Definitely. And we saw at WrestleMania 13, I believe, Bret Hart and Steve Austin at that match, where Steve Austin, it was a submission match, and Austin developed his character so much by not tapping out, by passing out instead, and that showed people he was a tough son of a bitch. So this led to some good things. We also had Undertaker defeating Mankind, 15 minutes. This was always a good match. We know they were both good workers.
We know that Mankind and Taker didn't have the strongest or best feuds, but they did have a history against each other. And I'm thinking that them going against each other at Survivor Series, what a pay-per-view to prolong their career.
Psycho Sid defeated Shawn Michaels. My God, do I need to say more? Survivor Series 97. Now, this is a big Survivor Series for many reasons. This is where the Montreal Screwjob took place. You could all talk about the matches on here. Kane versus Mankind, Team Canada versus Team USA. Road Warriors defeated the Nation of Domination. Austin even defeated Owen Hart at this. But it will essentially be remembered for what happened in the Montreal Screwjob, where Vince McMahon called the bell when Shawn Michaels had Bret Hart in the sharpshooter, when Bret Hart was leaving WCW and they needed to get that belt off him. Your opinions on the Montreal Screwjob?
Well, before getting to that, it was a nice stacked card, so they were getting you all warmed up for the main event, and then the main event hit place, and obviously you was expecting a good match between these two because you've seen previous matches.
The rivalry was amazing.
That's very true. And for them to have this match again, you were expecting a good match. That's what was the main event. And the Screwjob, what a surprise. If you've read Shawn Michaels' book, it goes into great detail, but again, this was just a good spot and a good, memorable thing for this Survivor Series.
It's essentially what this Survivor Series is remembered for, but also you had so much things developing from this. You had the beginning of the McMahon character. Bret Hart went off to WCW, and how many faces were built off that McMahon character? Like Austin, Rock, people like that. Undertaker, the Attitude Era, the biggest character of the Attitude Era. So many things led to this, and you had Bret Hart going to WCW. And then this was the sort of start of the Attitude Era when there's a more edgy product. A lot of things came of this, which is why it's such a memorable Survivor Series.
And this is always going to be remembered because obviously how it was made, the result of it, it's become a history thing that everyone talks about even now. So I think this Survivor Series is definitely one of the best.
Definitely so. And then we move on to the year 1998, the peak of the Attitude Era. This will essentially be remembered for a tournament. Now, here you had the development of Mr. McMahon and Austin. They were also developing The Rock as this next big babyface. In this, you had Vince costing Steve Austin his chance at the title after he fired him or something. And you had The Rock win this tournament, creating himself as a babyface and then aligning himself with Mr. McMahon. As this whole thing was a tournament, kind of like King of the Ring, wasn't it?
Yeah, you go from these traditional Survivor Series matches that we all love to see at Survivor Series to a huge tournament, which makes this different to other Survivor Series. And the fact you had like the Vince McMahon and Austin rivalry Probably start here. The Rock becoming big. So I think, to be honest, this was a special Survivor Series that again was pretty like quite a lot of matches. So you have to pay quite a bit of attention to it. But
it developed Rock as its main event guy, didn't it? And also, you didn't have Survivor Series matches there. It was a tournament. Some people may disagree with that, but you know, this was a pay-per-view. It was used for many different things. So we have less Survivor Series matches in them now anyway. So going from 1998, which was the peak of the Attitude Era, we have a little bit of 1999 for you guys. In this, I think this is what this will be remembered for. This is the pay-per-view where Austin got run over. He had problems with his neck. He needed to go off for neck surgery. This is what this will be remembered for. Austin getting run over.
And I like how Survivor Series have these little moments that always stand out. And something as big as your biggest babyface that's becoming grown for the past years, getting run over is a big shock, unexpected, and you're thinking, what's going to happen next? So I think this was a good moment for this pay-per-view.
Definitely. And you also had the development of Big Show as a main eventer as he won the title that night. Obviously WWF were thinking, we've not got Austin now, but they still had the guys like Triple H and The Rock and the Undertakers and the Mankind's to take over that main event slot, and they made another one in Big Show. So
I think they've done good because they needed to start pushing other people up. Yes, they had a huge main event scene at the time. They need to bring more in, and Big Show was obviously up there ready for it. Definitely
so. And I think we'll end on Survivor Series 2000, as this is the end of the millennium. Also continues on from last year. Austin got run over. In this pay-per-view, you know, it was best known for Stone Cold Steve Austin dropping Triple H in that car onto the floor from about 30 feet high in that digger. That was an amazing moment of this pay-per-view, wasn't it?
It was very indeed. Obviously, again, they're good at bringing these moments that are going to stand out to you. And the fact is, Triple H against Stone Cold, big blockbuster match. And you have something big happens to Triple H that's going to make this match even bigger than what it already was.
Definitely. You also had other things in there like Kurt Angle defeating The Undertaker, Dudley Boyz and Hardy Boyz defeating Edge and Christian and Right to Censor, Kane defeating Jericho, The Rock defeating Rikishi. You know, it's a very stacked card. You know, for 2000, this was also, you know, obviously the height of the Attitude Era. The Stone Cold Steve Austin Triple H rivalry, which then became into an alliance later on after WrestleMania 17.
They're true, but the thing is, you're starting to notice now the traditional Survivor Series matches are becoming less and less.
There's two in this one,
which could be disappointing, but at the same time, they're progressing other rivalries as well as the traditional. So I'm fine with that now.
Definitely so. I think we'll end it there. Survivor Series 2000. Next one we'll do from 2001 to 2010. If you guys have any thoughts on anything that we talked about in the years 1987 to 2000, on what we've said, any big moments that stand out for you, any particular favourite pay-per-views, get them in that comment section down below. NJ, do you want to end this?
Well, this has been fun. It took us a lot of a history tour. We spoke a lot about different wrestlers and how they progressed. But anyway, thank you for listening to our video, watching or listening to our video. And that has been it from Mr. Parkin and NJ. Yes, goodbye.
And tune in for part 2 next week.